We also have with us Arjun Ravi Koladi, who is the head of e-commerce COO, Facebook India. Joining them on stage, we have Pankaj Parihar, who's the head for digital marketing, new media and platforms, Godrej Group. We also have with us Sharad Dhal, who is the president for Yatra Online. And joining them on stage is Mr. Mukund Kumaran, who is the CEO, C1 Exchange. Right, Nadeesh, over to you.
Great. We seem to have lost a few of the panelists during lunch. One, and both the wallet guys seem to have dropped out at the last minute. One guy dropped off in the morning. The other guy seemed to have gotten lost during lunch somewhere. It's always tough to start a panel at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, immediately after lunch. I can see the energy levels dipping a bit. Ours were dipping as well as we were having lunch. And we're hoping that we can bring those back over the next 30 minutes or so. We'll try to make it as interesting as possible. Hopefully, there'll be a little bit of interesting debate, and you'll get some interesting takeaways from this session. So I'll start by asking the panel to just do a quick intro about themselves and tell us one interesting thing that they have bought on their mobile device in the last year or so. Arjun?
Sure. Hi, I'm Arjun. I manage the basically all the online businesses for Facebook. So commerce, travel, retail, professional services, hyper-local businesses. So everything that's online, I manage that for Facebook India. An interesting thing that I bought online was a Raspberry Pi, actually. I don't know why I bought it. It's still sitting in my house. I had some quite lofty ambitions about trying to figure out how to teach my son to code and so on, but I need to find it now and probably put it.
That was on mobile, right?
Yeah, I bought it on the mobile, yep.
Pankaj this side. I lead digital practice for Godrej Group and digital transformation as well. The most interesting thing which I've bought on mobile application is this thing called Shoehorn. Actually, I was looking for it for some time, and one of my friends gifted it to me, and he got it from Europe. And my dad is visiting me, and he was like, wow, this is a cool thing. Can I have it? So I was actually looking for it. I went to almost all shoe store. I couldn't find it. I just searched it on Amazon, and I found a better version of that shoehorn. So that's the most interesting thing which I bought recently.
Hi, I'm Sharad from Yatra. I head the B2C business at Yatra, and I've been at Yatra for about 5 years, and the last 10 years have been in online travel with TripAdvisor and Expedia. So I actually, like a true deal seeker, went and bought a large TV on the mobile because after researching everything on the desktop, I realized that it's cheaper on the mobile. And so I did that.
I wonder who got the attribution for that conversion.
Hello, hi, I'm Mukundu, founder and CEO of Clash1 Exchange. Looks like my name will be added soon, even though it has been communicated a few days back that they added me, but looks like the slide still doesn't have my name, but hopefully it'll be there soon. They said it's going to take 5 minutes latency time to get my name updated on the slide, so hopefully you'll see my name soon. From my mobile experience, I have a lot of enterprise background experience in the past, and then I do work with a lot of e-commerce company powering their ad tech and marketing tech today. One of the biggest thing I've seen is managing and running an enterprise application on a mobile app, which is happening. I'm actually from California, and I do see a lot of enterprise fintech and ERP systems coming on mobile exchanges, which have, in the 10 years back, I've seen it's so complicated to have hundreds of fields in a UI desktop, but going towards mobile and making the user experience much more easier, that's something very, very interesting I've seen, and then definitely m-commerce is going to be a big thing happening soon. Thanks.
Cool. So I think I'll give my input as well. So I work with Vserv. We're a mobile marketing platform. I run sales for them across India and Southeast Asia. The most interesting thing I bought on the mobile device recently was the pair of socks I'm wearing right now. Cost me about $100 for a pair of 3 socks or something like that, and that's all I bought. So they delivered for $100. I love VC money. and it was cheaper on mobile than it was on desktop, so that's why I went that way. But yeah, so I think I'd like to start by asking an audience question. How many of you have ever bought something on your mobile device? Just by a show of hands. I think I would say about 90% plus. right? So that pretty much tells me that the topic of this panel is kind of moot. So I'm going to go a little deeper. So for those who don't know, the topic of this panel is m-commerce the future of e-commerce? I think the show of hands pretty much told us that it's not the future, it's the present. The future is going to be deeper on m-commerce, right? And that's what I'm going to push the panel a little bit more on. And I'll start with Pankaj on this and try and understand a little bit more on how, as a traditional retailer, and I hope you don't get offended by that term, but as a large conglomerate who's been around for many, many years, how are you seeing this transition of consumer behavior from commerce that still continues to take place in a large way in the offline retail space, and this conversation that so many of us are having now about m-commerce and e-commerce, and how are you seeing that transition happening?
Okay, so from group perspective, I think we have multiple approaches because we have divisions which are actually targeting to various set of audiences. So we have e-commerce ecosystem, we have omni-channel ecosystem, and we also have marketplace association with various people. But the kind of shift which I'm seeing in terms of the audiences, I'll just talk about dipstick which we had done to understand how m-commerce is shifting and how people are using it. Actually, we went and spoke with a lot of people in very small towns like Vidisha, Jabalpur. And what I got to know in our conversation is that they switch on their internet packages when you have these big deals or big billion days or those kind of things, and they do shopping, and then they switch off their internet packages. That's the kind of changes which are happening in smaller cities and stuff. And I was just talking to you, and I think we are actually shifting the behavior of our audiences, wherein we are giving them that kind of discounts, and people are coming on, like Sharad said, he bought a television on application rather than on web platform. So the shift is happening in a big way, and in smaller towns, people are using applications more than web, and actually they are using internet, switching internet on during those days. That's the kind of shift we are seeing.
Just to kind of push deeper on that, as an organization, are you seeing in the leadership conversations that you have centered around how commerce in general is shifting to m-commerce?
So, okay, from leadership perspective, I would say we are still actually focusing on e-commerce. There are a couple of divisions which have just moved to e-commerce, and I'll talk about a particular division called Godrej Nature's Basket. Some 18 months to 24 months back, we came on e-commerce. We got our own ecosystem done. But last, and it is definitely a bigger one for us in terms of commerce, but we also shifted from e-commerce to m-commerce 3 quarters back, and we are seeing around 40% of our sales coming from application, and rest is coming. So shift is towards commerce, not necessarily towards 100% on m-commerce.
Let me move to Sharad. You've been one of the oldest and largest travel players in the country, travel being the first touch point for most consumers to start buying anything online. How are you seeing the shift in that category from almost a 10-year journey that you've seen starting from the desktop to where we are today, and where do you see this going over the next year or so?
So it's actually really interesting. I think the last 12 months, the kind of pickup that we've seen on the mobile side has been absolutely amazing. I was just talking to you guys before we started that I was doing a presentation at FMS this week, and I had a slide which was there from the same presentation I made 1 year back. And that spoke about penetration of travel, mobile bookings in travel going to 15% in 2016. And we are actually at, and this was a study by Focusrite and all of that. And we're actually at, close to 50% in some categories, almost 40% in others, depending upon the ticket size which is involved. So it's been amazing in terms of the kind of pickup. I don't think when we started the year, we expected it was like that because it was in single digits almost 12 months back. And so it's been fascinating. I think, directionally, I would now guess that 80% of our traffic will be on the mobile in the next 12 months. And I think that as a company, while we've kind of reallocated resources to the mobile and we've tried to be mobile first and all of that, I think that's a mindset that there's still a lingering mindset of the desktop, which is there. And I think we still have to shake that off completely. And that's one of the things that I thought was a positive of some of the moves that some of the guys did about going to a exclusively app environment, where the company only thinks mobile then. Whereas we are still kind of in the middle, because there are categories within our lines of business where the adoption online is or on the mobile is very, very little. So it's a mixed bag actually, but heading in the direction of the mobile clearly.
So when do you see mobile, and you spoke about some of this earlier, about high ticket, we were talking offline, about high ticket purchases still continuing to be done on the desktop and not on the mobile.
Right.
When do you see that transition happening, and when do you see the real movement across categories to go from the 30-40% that you're seeing in your category today to 60, 70, 80%?
So I think payment, to my mind, when you look at all the positives in favor of mobile commerce, it's all about the smartphones getting cheaper and better connectivity, tier 2, tier 3 towns, guys coming on straight, via the mobile device. But I think payments is an area where it's still, I don't think it's a completely seamless experience. And to my mind, wallets, and while there's a cap of 10,000 at this point of time, the RBI is re-looking at that. I think that cap going away could mean a lot of people who don't have big limits on their cards, who can top up their wallets with cash. All of these people come into booking online. The large part of not being able to book online on a large transaction is also because I don't have those kind of limits. So I think there is. That's probably something that's impeding in terms of high ticket value.
Moving on to Arjun. Facebook in India is almost all mobile, right? Large number of consumers coming on the mobile platform. What are some interesting insights that you guys are seeing in terms of consumer behavior, specifically on this platform? And how do you see some of that translating into mobile commerce or activities that drive commerce on this mobile platform?
Sure, and I think you're right. So this entire discussion, I think, for our company happened maybe 2 years ago, where we decided that mobile is going to be the future, et cetera, and pivoted the entire company over. From a trends point of view, I think there are two sides to it, right? One is the consumer side, the other is obviously the companies, partners, marketers who are on the platform trying to do a certain type of thing. On the consumer side, what we find is that for our platform, the browser continues to be a pretty large part of how people access. While obviously there are specific differences between user metrics, numbers, etc., browser continues, if not significant, continues to be a pretty large part of how people come onto the platform. So we are not extremely platform focused, and we develop for each platform uniquely and specifically. I think that's the challenge. So it's not really about, is it going to be app or browser or something in between, or Chrome, sort of app that you're launching or whatever it may be. I think it's about understanding the specific barriers for adoption from a consumer point of view, and then developing accordingly so that you're making that experience as seamless as possible. So we have Facebook Lite, we have a responsive browser site, we have multiple versions of our app across different devices and so on. So that's what we're trying to do, address on the consumer side. So that is one. I think two also is the rise of messaging, is something that that we're looking at very closely. We believe India will be at the forefront of whatever develops from a messaging point of view. There are some interesting experiments going on in the US with respect to assisted shopping, conversations between businesses and consumers via messenger platform and so on. So the idea is to try and provide all the different touch points possible while being extremely consumer focused, to make sure that whatever the person needs to do can do it with minimal friction and in a way that adds value to their life. and not so much platform specific. So that is one. Secondly, what we find is that usually the first touch point for any consumer, if he's coming mobile for the first time, is going to be via your M site, right? It's not going to be via your app. Your M site is how you introduce people to your product or service experience. Your M site is how probably somebody searched for something and Google drove them to the M site first. So from a discovery point of view, I think a lot of responsibility lies on the people who deliver these products and experiences to consumers to give them a good enough reason once they have come to your M site to also then go ahead and use your app, right? So M site is what introduces consumers to your experience on mobile. App is what will drive frequency, retention, higher LTV, etc. So I think that's the other shift, to make sure that while you may not be able to have the exact same experience on both, you're creating experiences that are valuable enough for that consumer to come back to you. And then you move him down the journey where he has to take the decision of the amount of space on his phone and data consumption and all the other things that he has to do about whether your app is really worth having to him in the long run.
But
right, so these are the two, I think, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just cutting you there, but are you seeing marketeers looking at the mobile platform with that lens? App seems to be the talk of town, right? So every commerce company has to have an app. Every commerce company wants to have 10, 20, 30 million downloads of their app. So as a platform that's working with a lot of these marketeers and these brands, how are you seeing that conversation going?
I think we're seeing that conversation moving really fast, and not moving, but changing really fast, right? So if 2015 was about big numbers on app and discussions around what is going to be the future of the various platforms that people are offering, I think post Diwali, when you look at stuff like retention, when you look at the various attribution issues that plague our specific industry, people are beginning to realize that it's just a blind acquisition focused activity in the market is not necessarily something that is good for business overall, right? You might I know that, VCs ask for specific goals and numbers and whatever, whenever people are making plans about what they need to show. But the fact is, for the fundamentals of the business, I think largely for our sort of top